I often think of regret as a spectrum. And at one end of the spectrum are little things that I regret. So maybe I said something inappropriate, I feel embarrassed about it, or I spent too much time scrolling on my phone, or I ate too much of a food that I like and now I feel sick. So these are not huge deals, and I end up regretting those for a short period of time, but pretty quickly I can recover and move on. In the middle of the spectrum are regrets with bigger consequences. So maybe I didn't spend enough time with someone who I loved and they're no longer here, or maybe I missed out on a financial opportunity. Now these regrets, they're much harder to swallow because ultimately when you make those mistakes over and over again, they can add up to real loss over time. And so when I find myself having those types of regrets, I try to learn from them so I don't do them again. At the other end of the spectrum are big regrets. These are things that if you could get in a time machine and go back in time to change it, you absolutely would. One of my biggest regrets actually happened when my sons were little. We decided that we were going to take a trip out to see my in-laws who live in California. But because we live in Chicago, that requires a 5-hour plane flight. But because of my wife's work schedule, she couldn't come out with me. So I was gonna have to take the boys out on my own. And I don't know if you have in-laws, but mine are pretty particular about how they like their house, what you can and can't do. So by the end of the week, I was ready to leave. And again, I had to take the boys home on my own because of my wife's work schedule. We get on the flight, there's a lot of logistics involved in getting them all the way back to Chicago, but we do it, and I was really proud of myself. I didn't lose my cool the entire time. I get them home, we go to bed. Now what I didn't realize was just how exhausted I was from this entire trip. And so the next morning I get up late and we have an appointment we need to get to. And if you've had little kids, you know that when you wake up late, nothing is going to go smoothly. And that's exactly what happened. And so I got them like 90% of the way there, and I was like, look, can you guys put your socks and shoes on? I'd really appreciate that. I leave for a few minutes, I come back, and they've done nothing. No socks, no shoes, like they've just been playing. Now, I shouldn't have had such high expectations. I mean, they are 4 and 6 at this point. But because I was exhausted, I lost my cool. I said, look, I'm gonna go out to the car, I'll meet you all out there, and you need to be there in 2 minutes, otherwise I'm leaving. Now, of course, this is a bit of an empty threat because we're going to an appointment for them. I'm not gonna leave them. So I go out to the car and I wait. 2 minutes elapses, so I pull out of my driveway and I drive down the street and I turn around and I come back. I was gone for probably all of 20 seconds. But when I pulled into the driveway and I could see my youngest son in the glass door and there were just tears streaming down his face. And I knew in that moment I had made a huge mistake. Now today, my sons are teenagers and they still talk about this moment. Unfortunately, I think it's one of their first core memories. And it impacted my youngest son the most because he will always ask me when I'm leaving, he'll say, Dad, where are you going? When are you coming back? I think that this event instilled in him a deep fear that one day I might leave and never return. Now, in case you're wondering, I have apologized to my sons for what I did and told them how much I regret it. And for their part, they've forgiven me for it. They're like, Dad, it's water under the bridge. No big deal. But if I could go back in time and talk to myself about how those 20 seconds would impact my sons, I absolutely would. Now, not everybody has the opportunity to be able to talk to the people who they've hurt about their regrets. In fact, one of those people is my friend Liz, who I talked about at the beginning of this episode. She's never had the opportunity to speak about her regrets to her son. And so how I thought we would end our episode today is by giving her that opportunity that she's never had before.